And welcome to the Moriah Nightly News on this Wednesday evening, July 22nd, 2026. From the nation to Moriah, here are tonight's top stories. Across the pond in the UK, there is a new Prime Minister. Andy Burnham has taken the reins of the UK government, promising a return to stability. He is the seventh prime minister in a decade. Recall that previous statistic I had given that in the years following World War II all the way until 2016, there had been 13 prime ministers in the UK. But in the last decade, there has been a record 7 in such a short period of time. He has promised a rollback of 40 plus years of what he called neoliberalism. And I'm not quite sure what that would mean for European politics as opposed to American politics, and calling for a more interventionist state. And that is basically a fancy way of saying a more involved Britain or UK in terms of foreign policy. And we'll see how that plays out in terms of the current conflict in the Middle East. In any event, he wants to devolve power from London to the regions, was how the Wall Street Journal phrased that. Again, I'm not sure exactly how that would look like or what that would look like for the UK specifically, but that is what was reported in the larger media outlets. Investors are predicting a more left-wing direction for his government. Yet the big item of significance there in terms of economic policy for the new UK Prime Minister is the renewal of licenses for oil drilling in the UK's North Sea region. These licenses were previously blocked by a court ruling over environmental concerns quite some time ago by the looks of it, and the president, our own president, said that it would that renewing these licenses would bring the UK out of its current economic slumber. That, of course, very interesting to note, and very much the top story, at least on the world stage over the last couple of days, was the new prime minister taking power in Britain. The Pentagon, here back across the pond in our own country, the Pentagon has been looking to startups and venture capitalists to expand its acquiring of weapon systems. These weapon systems were what the Wall Street Journal reported as high-tech defense startups, so more what we might call smart weapons. The big gainer, or the one that gained the most of this, was Adderall. Not I want to say Adderall. Adderall Industries, I'm pronouncing that correctly, that doubled in value from $30.5 billion to $60.1 billion. Again, doubling in value. There has been concern in Congress as to the amount of money that these startups are making over the increase in defense spending as in recent years, citing not only the conflict in the Middle East, but renewed aggression with China and possible Chinese invasion of Taiwan. Yet it is also indicated somewhat independently that these startups still only account for about 1% of the total U.S. defense budget. So interesting to note there. And on the note of defense, Iran is continuing to show its ability to fire missiles, despite those claims by the president of their weapon systems being totally obliterated. That has been the line of rhetoric from the president, at least for the past few months. That is not to say anything against the U.S. military, because as I have noted, they have fought incredibly well in the conflict. But the reports coming out over the last few days from the attack that took place this past weekend that killed 3 U.S. service personnel is an indication that Iran has not expended its arsenal of weapons, and that it is in part of that broader strategy on the part of the Iranians to wait out the U.S., and that they have been preparing for this scenario for decades. That, of course, is mean nothing new or nothing to be surprised about. Israel, as it were, has been asked to sit out this current round of escalation or escalatory back and forth from the U.S. and Iran, per the U.S. and the other Arab nations, claiming that Israeli involvement would, quote, add a disruptive variable in trying to wring out diplomatic concessions from Iran. This was the reporting, again, from the Wall Street Journal, which is one of the main source materials for our national coverage. And I would reiterate the point that terrorists do not respond to negotiations, but instead bombs are the only thing that they will listen to. And really, a nation like Iran is not worth negotiating with to start with. I know that that is somewhat controversial, but it is what it is. Also noteworthy on the oil front is that in terms of the supply, it's been reported that there are other variables threatening that supply chain. The first of those was a potential blockade from Houthi rebels, which is another Iranian-backed militia group, with a threatening a potential blockade of Saudi Arabia, but that has yet to materialize. And then there are also concerns over the amount of strikes that the Ukrainians have been carrying out against oil fields in Russia. I'm actually surprised that it has taken the media outlets this long to catch up to that, as I had been watching that over the last week or so and had kind of thought that myself, that in time those strikes against Russian oil fields would eventually catch up to the price of oil, and that is what it appears to be at this point. The Russians have had their hands full with the Ukrainians in terms of their drone weapon systems, and the U.S. has caught wind of those systems and has been offering assistance and things like that, all of which I myself have been watching to see how that'll all pan out. Here locally, it was noted, very much concerned for some of the debates around the region, that the Adirondack Land Trust purchased a parcel of land up in the town of Chesterfield to our north. This was a parcel of land for about 2,400 acres worth, purchased from a timber investment company called U.S. Forest Invest, which included about 12 ponds, 6.5 miles of streams, and it included Drake Mountain. Of course, the DEC praised this as being vital to its land conservation efforts, and the eventual plan for this land would be to turn it over to the state forest preserve for all of the hiking, biking, and all of that type of stuff. I will note, however, that I am always skeptical of any land grab from New York State, or on behalf of New York State, and I am even more skeptical given everything that has been taking place with solar panels, storage projects, and the like here in our region. This was up in the town of Chesterfield by the Adirondack Land Trust, and the Sun Community News reported on that over the weekend here in our region. The Sun also reported that the town of Crown Point is requesting a state investigation into a June 30th accident at the intersection that we all know between the Bridge Street and 9N22. This intersection has been, or it always has been, a problem due to its lack of visibility, and there have been at least 3 accidents of concern down there. But the town of Crown Point has requested an investigation, and the results will be forthcoming, and they are hoping for some solutions to that. Proposed solutions have included a potential traffic light or a 3-way stop or different things like that to try and lessen the risk of an accident there. They do not want to, according to the article from the Times of Tai, they do not want to lower the speed limit, feeling that it would disrupt people's habits too much. Not that it's like a stoplight would do that more than lowering the speed limit. But in any case, they are hoping to solve that problem with that intersection there and the lack of visibility. Of course, it was noted that the best solution, and I would agree wholeheartedly with this, that the best solution is to simply slow down and use common sense, both of which are lacking this day and age. So that is the major headlines this evening. A programming note that you might have seen on our page this week was the Remembering Our Heritage photos that have been out this past week. That is to promote and prepare for the eventual interview series that we will be doing here at the Moriah channel with the Town of Moriah Historical Society and some of those folks there, with potentially the former Town of Moriah historian Joan Davy being our first interview, and anyone else is welcome to participate in that project to remember our heritage. A nice break from the things going on around our community. There is also the next week, we will be up in Westport for the Essex County Fair. We are 1 week away now from the start of the fair. That is running July 29th through August 2nd at the Westport Fairgrounds, at the Essex County Fairgrounds in Westport. And we will be up there. And so I have not announced officially what will happen with our programming here. So do pay attention to that. And do be sure to like, subscribe, and all of that good stuff here in the days ahead. So that is the Moriah Nightly News for this evening, this Wednesday night. Have a good evening. Good night.